So in this one, we're going to look at planes and axes. There's 3 planes and 3 axes that you could get asked about in the exam. So it could ask you about a certain sport and movement, and it could say about what plane is the movement happening and around what axes. So we'll firstly look at planes and then we'll move on to axes. So the first one we're going to talk about is the sagittal plane. So this is the one that cuts us in half from head to toe, so separates our left side to our right side. So if you imagine someone walking forward, they are moving through their sagittal plane. Likewise, if you imagine someone doing a sit-up, they are moving through their sagittal plane. Next one we're going to talk about is our frontal plane. So this is the one that separates the front of our body with the back of our body. So if this person is to do a side step this way or a side step this way, they would be moving through their frontal plane. Likewise, if they are to do a cartwheel, they are also moving through their frontal plane. And then lastly, we've got this transverse plane that separates our top from our bottom. Now, not many movements work for this plane, but the one that you need to think about is if a ballet dancer is doing a pirouette. So if they are twisting, they are moving through this plane here. So the likely question that's going to be on the exam is, can you identify what movement is moving through what plane? So it's likely that it'll give you something like a golf swing, and it'll ask you to identify what plane that movement is taking place through. So that would be the transverse phase, because the golfer goes from here and he spins around to take his shot. Now, alongside the planes, we also have axes. So while we've got this image up, we'll talk about our first axes. So the first axes we're going to talk about is the longitudinal axes. Now the longitudinal axes, we need to imagine that we have put a stick in our man here, and it runs right through the top of their head and right at the bottom. So when we made the plasticine models in the class, it's the one that we stuck in the top of the head. And if we imagine twisting that, they are going to start twisting round. They're going to go round. So that is our longitudinal axes. The next one we've got is our transverse axes. So we've got to imagine it going through their hips. And if we start turning them, they're going to do something like a forward somersault or a backward somersault. So again, imagine that plasticine model we made. We're twisting one of the hips and they're going forward or they're going backwards. So they could either do full rotation or part rotation. And that is our transverse axes. If you've ever seen or played table football, that is what this axis is like. It's like you have got a table football person. You're twisting them forwards and backwards. And finally, we have got the sagittal axis, which is the one that runs through their belly button and out their back. And if we start twisting this person will begin doing cartwheels. So going from left to right. So they're the 3 planes and the 3 axes. Now it sounds a little bit confusing, but let's put it into exam talk and what type of exam questions you could get, so we can understand better on how to answer the questions. Now, at the moment, from what I can see, these are the only movements that they will ask you about for axes and planes. Now, you've got 4 lower body and 3 upper body. So it's likely that they'll say about what plane and what axis is one of these taking place. So let's make it easy for ourselves and work out the answer now. So if they ask you about either the kick, the jump, the squat, the running, the press up or the throw, and if they ask you about what plane that is taking place in, then the answer is it is taking place in the sagittal plane. Reason for this is when you're kicking, you're moving backwards and forwards as you kick. When you're jumping up and down within this plane. When you're squatting down and back up in this plane. When you're running forward through the plane. When you're doing your press up, you're laid down, you're pressing down and back up. And when you're throwing, you're stepping back and forward into the throw. So you're still working in the sagittal plane. So now all we need to do is work out about what axes it is working on. So remember, we've got our longitudinal that goes through the head. We've got our sagittal that goes through the belly button. And then we've got a transverse that goes through the hips. Now the axis that works for all these, kick, jump, squat, running, press up and throw, is the transverse axes. So we imagine our person as a table football player. So a kick obviously is forward and backwards. Squat is up and down, so it's moving through that transverse axes. Running, we're going through that transverse axes. Press up again, down and up, so we're running through that transverse axes. So the only one we've got to talk about is this forehand racket shot. So if you imagine yourself with your racket in your left and your right hand, okay, and we are swinging our arm back and twisting, and we are pulling our arm through to strike that ball. So it's working in this transverse phase. Our legs stay relatively still. We take our arm back, we whip it forward to hit that ball. Likewise, the axis that it's taking place in is this longitudinal one. So we are here, we're taking our body, we're twisting it back and we're whipping it forward to play that forehand racket shot. Like I said, from what I can see, these are the only ones that we will potentially get asked on. So make life easy for yourself. Remember these, remember the planes, remember the axes, and we should be ready for that exam question.